How long will it take for the new superintendent, Misty Hurd, to significantly raise Fresno Unified test score? This is a survey that GBWire puts out. There's the numbers. It will never happen. Majority of folks, followed by, she'll have everything improving in a year, 3 years, 5 years, but majority of folks that it will never happen. Weather forecast. Um, some great weather still coming on with a nice cooling trend over the weekend. It's a very volatile weather, kind of like the U.S. economy and tariffs, but we'll see. Uh, but some beautiful sunny days and a little bit partly cloudy. Slight chance of sprinkles coming up next few days. And then feds again bump the water allocation for Central California for many Fresno farmers, mainly in Central California, to 50%, 50, which is that's a really fantastic number compared to 25 and 30 and 40, which is typical allocation. A lot more detail on that if you want, if you're interested. Those of you interested in water for farmers, please read that article on GB Wire. Majority disapprove of President Trump's immigration policies as his uh, approval approval ratings slide. There was an NPR PBS poll that reveals a divided nation as President Trump approaches his 100th day in office. There's a survey from April 21st to 23rd shows that 45% believe Trump deserves an F for his performance. 23% would give him an A. Approval rating has dipped to 42%, with only 36% independents expressing approval. This marks a significant decline since his inauguration, largely attributed to concerns over his handling of the economy and the volatile tariffs. President's economic approval rating has hit a record low of 39%. A lot more on that article and all the charts. There it is. Some of it is on your screen. Take a look at it for more of that information. Please check out gbwire.com for that article and President Trump's approval rating. Let's see. Trump utilized executive order. Now, the president has utilized executive orders many times, and of course, you can do it by, if I understand this correctly, declaring a state of emergency, which I believe the president has. Is it close to a dozen times, if not more? And then immigration approval ratings decline as enforcement tactics lose support. Another great article on GB Wire. If you're interested, please take a look at those articles. Irish lawmakers, Irish lawyer details Israel's UN violations at the International Court. I think for I don't know how many times the Israeli government has blockaded humanitarian aid, which means the slow starving to death of children, women, men in Gaza, with, of course, U.S. backing and support, which is really unfortunate. I don't care what side of the equation you're on when we're helping starve children to death in that part of the world and bomb hospitals. It's really a very sad day. That is not reflective of U.S. values. Some of the rules changes. Fresno Unified School Board may change long-standing role under revised bylaw. The rules are going to change. It sounds like tomorrow night. And then, Edward, you had another story which I want to actually discuss before we get into some of these changes that impact a lot of folks. And then I'm going to bring in Louis Jamerson here in about a minute. But let's put up, there you go. Fresno Unified's new superintendent allegedly helped promote her cousin. 4 lawsuits claim nepotism and incompetence. Can you dive in and tell the GB Wire audience? You can kind of give them a preview on what you're going to discuss tomorrow on TV.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, it begins with some reporting that Nancy Price, our other reporter, started with last year when she was reporting on age discrimination lawsuits from a group of school nurses who said that their immediate supervisor, Liz Torres, continually, denied them promotions, would call them, the old ones or the old nurses, use some pretty derogatory terms according to the lawsuit. Um, but that lawsuit quickly evolved. It turned into another school nurse who found out about a student death and was reprimanded when he found out that that student's death was kind of covered up. At least that's what the lawyer is saying. It was covered up when it happened, and that the nurse who kind of sent a nurse who should have called an ambulance for the student who was having an asthma attack at school. She instead, called her parents when the district's asthma policy says, you send that child right away to the hospital. I mean, we're talking about a child who used her inhaler 6 times. Um, she couldn't walk, and she called, but instead, the nurse called the nurse called the student's parents. So this other nurse, Liz Torres, who is a cousin of Misty Her, according to the lawsuit, is named in all this nepotism, and the lawsuits are calling her, or not lawsuits, are saying that there was a culture of retaliation at the district. Basically, keeping there was an in group and there was an out group, and so that stemmed from this lawsuit with the age discrimination turned into the lawsuit about the nurse who had to defend himself when he was accused of reprimanding. It turned into another loss age discrimination lawsuit. Um, from another nurse who kind of another veteran nurse who's been around for a long time. And she was let go. She was actually fired. She says that she was wrongfully terminated. And then finally, so another lawsuit, it's going to be filed here shortly. We actually got to see a draft of it. It came from the district's executive officer of safety and security, who they hired in, I believe it was 2023. And as soon as he came in, he reported seeing a real insider group there. Same kind of stuff that was happening with school nurses. A lot of the security guards there, they had an insider group doing, the kind of going after other employees who weren't inside that group, and that all took place under one of the officer who oversaw both school nurses and security, Amy Eidsvog, who is the husband of another
Uh, I,
FUSD executive,
I'm
Paul
sorry,
Eidsvog.
Amy Eidsberg, whose husband is who again? Say that again.
Paul Eidsvog,
And
and
what does
they're
he
both.
do?
So he is the oh, you got me here. Now I'm
Okay, but
blanking here.
he's
He's
also in
a
the
very,
cabinet.
yes, very
He's a
high
high
up
up.
in the
Okay.
cabinet. So yeah, so he was the, so, and she's been relocated. She's been reassigned positions at least twice. So that wasn't her original location. That wasn't her original position. Was this director of safety and security? And kind of after some of these lawsuits came out, she was relocated. Now FUSD says that wasn't the reason why she was relocated, but it does happen to come after two of the major lawsuits came out. But now she's in a different position, something that Superintendent Misty Her and the board had adopted. They had adopted these effective staff guardrails, saying, "Hey, we're going to stop doing these lateral movements and just shifting people around to new positions." And so, yeah, it's still kind of happening there.
So let me just make sure the audience understands it. So the guardrail said we're not going to move people laterally that are underperforming. If somebody's
Exactly.
underperforming, we're just not going to promote them or put them from this position to this position. We're going to actually take whatever action is necessary, reprimand them, and potentially remove them from their position. Uh, and now they're not doing that. Is that correct?
That's what it looks like. I
Yeah.
had a chance to talk to Misty in an interview, and I asked her about that, and she said that that guardrail is mostly to make sure that people are best equipped to do their job. But the way that it's supposed, I mean, it's a guardrail. It's supposed to protect against just simply moving people around and reshuffling is how some people took it.
So my understanding, Darius and audience, is that this decision, these changes will be adopted tomorrow. Obviously, they may not. They may decide to make some other changes. They may decide to potentially look at some other options before the decision is made. But based on everything that I know at the moment, changes to the bylaws of the board, the Fresno Unified School Board, will be made tomorrow.
And what can you kind of summarize for the audience? What are these changes? First of all, what are the changes, and why are they making these changes within 5 days after the new superintendent was selected?
Yeah, Darius, I'm a little curious about the timing as well. There are some, significant changes being made to these bylaws, and I'm not sure why they have decided, even before we are clear what the vision is of the new superintendent, that they're going to make these changes to these bylaws. So I'm not sure why the timing is being done. What would appear to us is very quickly. Obviously, it's possible that the board has been having these conversations in closed session for some time, but all indications are that this is relatively new, and that for some reason it feels like they are trying to move quickly on this process. Now, it seems like this is, these changes could potentially impact some, and I'm sure we'll talk more of the details, but it seems like some of these changes could potentially impact what we are learning from our school board and our leadership body. And it seems like if we were going to go down this road, that we should have more community input beforehand. But again, that's just based on my read. I think just like most of us, this news got to me just, within the last couple of days. And so I'm still processing this information, but it does feel like we should take a little more time with these number of changes that we're looking at.
So again, let's talk about some of the changes. Can you give us some of the highlights of the changes? Does it empower the superintendent? Does it empower the board? Does it make the process more transparent? Does it take authority away from the superintendent or the board? Does it make decision making? I'm going to use this like the president. Is it a lot of opportunity for executive orders so the board isn't needed? Can you give us a little bit of an update on kind of where we're at on these on the
Yeah,
potential changes?
is it possible to bring up the draft
Yeah,
of the changes? If that's
yeah.
possible, it might be
Yeah,
better
let's
for
put
folks
that
to
up. Yeah,
look.
we're gonna put that up. Let's put up slide 16. There's 17 that shows the changes. But okay. You want this one up or?
No, it would be better if you went to the actual document. If you have what at the top of the page is Fresno Unified Board Bylaw BB 9000. Yeah,
Yes, that one. There we go.
that would be helpful. So obviously, again, there's a lot here. We have a limited amount of time, so I won't be able to go through every single line on this document. A couple of things I would like to highlight. On the first page, under what is now number 3, and then if you go down to 3E, it says regularly revisiting its SOFG and guardrails, comma, and amending these as needed. So that makes sense and we can put more of that in context. The concern I have is if you continue reading, it says providing safe, adequate facilities that support the district's instructional program. That is completely crossed out. So when I read that, one of the things that comes to mind is, well, if the board is no longer responsible for providing safe facilities, then who is, right? Because now that's crossed out. And I haven't seen any other place in the document where they talk about safe facilities. So if the only place in the document is crossed out, then it brings to the question again, who's going to be responsible for providing safe facilities? In that same sentence, under section 3E, it says adequate facilities. So in addition to safe facilities, it seems like the board will be no longer responsible for adequate facilities as well. So again, I don't see another place in the document where it talks about keeping our facilities safe or adequate. That's just a section where it is crossed out. And so then who's responsible? And again, I want to be clear, Darius and others. I'm not here saying that the board is not going to do that. But when it is crossed out in one section of this document and is not addressed in another section, it just sort of raises the question of who's going to be responsible for those two important elements.
What about 5A.
Okay,
It says overseeing the SOFG, the monthly data monitoring process, and it's crossed off monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of policies. What does that mean? So if so, they're not going to be looking. If they have a policy, they're not going to look at how effective it is going forward. I mean,
yeah, Darius, you know, people might think that we talked about this ahead of time, but I'm
and this
glad.
is the first time I'm reading this.
That's right, yeah.
I want everybody to know this is the first time I'm seeing this document, and the first time I'm actually reading it live on the screen. Please enlarge the document again. That's from Cam Malloy. Can we just put, we're going to have to take probably me and Lewis off the screen. Let's just put the document up and go to, there we go. Let's go to 5A. Let's make sure, there we go. At the very bottom of your page, monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of policies. That's crossed off. You have any insights to that, Lewis? Why would a board, by the way, hold on, let me make sure. From what I understand, I want to make sure, do you know, is this a true statement? The bylaw committee, it's a committee that makes all the recommendations of the bylaws. And do you know who those folks are, Louis? Is it Claudia Casares, Andy, and the president, Valerie?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So those three folks have made these recommendations, three of the board members, and now it's going to get voted by the board at large. Why would you want to take away? Now let's bring the document back up because I want everybody to get a chance to see it. There you go. Why would you want to take away monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of policies?
Yeah, Darius, I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. What I would remind this group of, if you, we had the opportunity back in 2023 when we were bargaining with Fresno Unified to have two of our bargaining sessions live streamed. We wanted to do that for the purpose of transparency. Every time we go to the bargaining table, we are always prepared to have all of our bargaining sessions shared with the community, because we think that folks will actually be quite shocked to hear some of the things that we hear from Fresno Unified leadership. But during that bargaining session that's recorded and anyone can go and look it up, the district said, when asked or questioned by the FTA president, Manuel Bonilla, they said, we have over 300 initiatives and none of them are ever evaluated or assessed. Now, I understand between 2023 and now, they have supposedly, there's a process to start doing some evaluation of certain policies and programs. But again, when I see this crossed out, that it sounds like it's the opposite of that, then I'm concerned as well. And to your question, what does that mean? Again, I don't know, but it does bring up a concern. And then if you don't mind, Darius, I'll even go to 5. If you go, one of the things that jumps out even more, if you go to the second page at 5C.
No, it's on the screen.
Okay.
I was
Yeah,
about
very
to
good.
read it. This is ludicrous. Go ahead, Louis.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you go to 5C, this was one that jumped out at me looking at this document about an hour and a half ago for the first time. Monitoring, or a little bit more than an hour and a half ago, but anyway, monitoring student achievement and program effectiveness and requiring program changes as necessary, completely crossed out. So again,
this is honest. This is a public school that doesn't want to monitor student achievement and programs effectiveness and requiring program changes as necessary. That's just incredible. That's just, this is the kind of stuff that Doge came in and go, you know what, we got to go get rid of a bunch of bureaucracy because there's just so much. I mean, look at, they're getting paid $2 billion a year. They had one of the largest tax hikes, property tax hike in Fresno County history, $500 million, Measure H. The voters passed that last November, and they're coming in right out of the gate.
Our system, by and large, doesn't rely on the professionals for input in the system that they are the professionals in. We don't oftentimes ask our teachers enough about what needs to change in a classroom. And I'll give you just a couple of ideas because I've heard these from teachers. So if you know, when we talk, the president and I of FTA, we talk to our teachers often. They give us great ideas about improving instruction and learning in our classrooms. We then take those ideas and we try to share them with the district. And I'll give you one. I talked to Edward about this recently as well. This sort of question about literacy, a lot of times our teachers are saying, give me the support I need as a classroom teacher, and then let me do my job. I know my students, I know what my students need. I know one kid might like reading something differently than another student. If you restrict my ability too much, I can't then adapt my classroom to meet the interests and the desires of my students, and then allow my students to grow in areas that they would comfortably grow in. So we were talking about this issue of literacy, and Manuel and I, the president of FTA, said to Misty, hey, we have an idea. It doesn't cost you any money. Imagine if 1,100 people showed up to a school site on tomorrow to support our school sites, and they were going to be there for 3 hours. All of a sudden, you'd have 3,300 hours of direct support at our schools. And those people show up at whatever school sites they want to, but they're going to be there for 3 hours this week. They're going to be there for 3 hours next week, and the week after, and the week after. And so you have all these people coming to schools to help teachers. So if I'm a teacher in a classroom and I want to have what small group instruction, so I want to have a group of kids that maybe need more help with reading, they're going to go to the reading group. There's going to be a volunteer helping kids read. There's another group that needs to do math. There's another group science, whatever. And then we have our volunteers who are comfortable helping students in those areas sit down. And then our teachers in that space can work with maybe some of the students who are furthest behind to start helping them catch up. So all of our kids are having their needs met in one classroom with folks. And so we're saying it's easy. It doesn't even cost you any money to do that. And like the question was, so how would you do that, Lewis and Manuel? Well, one of the ways you do that is you have 1,100 managers already in your system. Why don't you just deploy them for 3 hours a week to a school site? Right. And we've heard some of our board members talk about safe routes to school, all these things that we know we need at our school. Our teachers are always saying, I need support, I need support. And you could have 1,100 people show up, cost the district no money. These are people already on your payroll. Some of them could go to schools where their kids are already attending. So they get to give back to the community where their kids go. And that would have a tremendous impact. We gave them one other idea. At night, we could have reading. People could volunteer. Kids are, after COVID, are very proficient in clicking on Teams or Zoom. And then we just have volunteers at night who read to our kids. Like, these are things, volunteers doesn't cost you any money, that can have a tremendous impact on literacy intervention, things that would be helpful. We've shared this idea with the district so far, nothing. And so when Darius, I think you mentioned earlier, do people really care about what's happening? We get concerns about that because as leaders of this association, we listen to our teachers. When they say that these things are impacting what's happening at our school site, we try to then help get those resources to that school site so that those needs can be met. And oftentimes, it's difficult to get there, even with something that costs the district no money at all.